There's a perennial meme around business leadership, a source for endless infographics and listicles, and that's the manager bad, leader good meme. Don't be a manager, be a leader. I've been working full-time in the business world for almost 25 years now, and it's been a thing as long as I remember. It's certainly been a thing as long as business social media like LinkedIn has been around. We see manager bad, leader good on our LinkedIn feeds at least once a week, if not more often.
I'm sure you've seen them too. In the comments, we'd love to see your favorite version of this, either because it was actually helpful in some way, or because it was the strawiest of straw men. And while you're at it, the best way to support the Humanizing Work show is by subscribing on your podcast app or on YouTube, liking the episode, and sharing it with friends.
It's striking that despite at least a quarter century with the manager versus leader meme, many thousands of people still have manager in their job title. We looked it up. According to official sources like the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are over 1 million managers in the U.S. The meme sticks, but so does the term manager. I can think of a lot of other job titles that have changed over that same period, but not manager. So, Peter and I got curious. Where did this manager versus leader meme come from? And is it doing us any good? Are leaders, or managers, better because of it? If so, let's kill off the manager title. If not, let's find a more useful distinction.
Yeah, when words take on these kind of fuzzy meanings like this, I like to geek out for a minute on their etymology, kind of where the words came from, to see if there's anything helpful to understand kind of how the word has evolved over time. For example, the word manage has this very interesting evolution. The original term manage comes from the Latin word manus, which is literally hand. And by the 1500s, the word manage or manager was being used to describe, quote, to handle, train, or direct as a horse. In the 1700s, this had evolved to quote, to control or direct by administrative ability. And then by about the 1980s, apparently it has come to mean be a terrible leader. If we take that early definition to handle, train, or direct as a horse, it made me think, well, what's the horse if we're managing? If it's the employees, well, that's pretty terrible. We're not livestock. But if the horse in that definition is the work itself, or maybe more specifically, the interdependent systems we use to get work done, well, maybe that makes sense as a definition of manager. We do want to handle, train, and direct the systems of work effectively. The etymology of leader is a little bit more straightforward. It came from an Old English term that meant guide or go first. So then we got curious about where the straw man meme came from. And the first reference I could track down is a 1977 article in Harvard Business Review by Abraham Zeleznik called Managers and Leaders, Are They Different? And in that article, Zeleznik asserted that leaders are more like creative artists and managers are focused on process efficiency and control. And then the book that seemed to kind of blow this viewpoint into the mainstream was Warren Bennis's classic On Becoming a Leader. And in that book, he gives the earliest leader-manager listicle that I've been able to track down. This book was in 1989. And to quote just a small sample from that long list that he made, so they have the idea he has, quote, the manager administers, the leader innovates. The manager is a copy, the leader is an original. The manager relies on control, the leader inspires trust, and on and on.
So this seems to be taking a correlation in our common language and turning it into ontological categories. Most bad leaders probably do have manager in their title. So if we call someone a manager, the odds are they're a bad leader, just statistically. On the other hand, we refer to effective leaders in retrospect as leaders in our common language, like that person was really a leader. Thus, manager becomes a shorthand for bad leader, and leader becomes a shorthand for good leader, which reminds me a little bit of how we talk about cupcakes as desserts and muffins as part of a healthy breakfast, even though they're the same thing. They're both cupcakes, which leads to this funny situation we have today where thousands of people who want to do their job well are faced with the implication that something is inherently wrong with their job because of the title. And at best, you're left with, well, sure, I'm a manager, but I'm really a leader. We find that distinction unhelpful. I think it's more useful to say some people have roles where they're responsible in some way for the outcomes of other people's work. They get various titles, usually based on the scope of that responsibility. But whether you're an engineering manager or the VP of a business unit, you're responsible for leading a group of people to produce some good outcome together. So let's talk about what that job involves and how to do it well.
In all of these memes, it started to occur to me that the straw man bad manager is almost always describing what developmental models would call lower stages of development. For example, the leadership circle would map the manager bad descriptions pretty cleanly to the reactive stage of development, and the leader good descriptions pretty cleanly to the creative stage. You can check out our previous episode on the leadership circle for more on that model. And notice that the leadership circle is calling both of those things leadership. Bill Joyner's leadership agility model, which I know many of our audience will have come across, has a really similar distinction with leadership stages that move from expert to achiever to catalyst. Again, each different descriptions of leadership. And I think collapsing the manager and leader terms into simply different stages of leadership seems like a much clearer way to think about it. We don't need to set up management as a straw man in order to have a vision for what good leadership looks like.
So models like the leadership circle and leadership agility answer the question, how do you do whatever you do as a manager or leader? Then to answer the question of, but what do I actually do as a manager or leader, we developed our 3 jobs of management model, which, by the way, could just as well have been called the 3 jobs of a leader, if you prefer that. We called it the 3 jobs of management because a lot of people have that title. A lot of our clients do. And there seems to be a shortage of good advice for them about how to do their job well, especially in a highly empowered organization. So anyway, our answer to what do I actually do as a manager or leader, especially if you want to have highly empowered individuals and teams, is 3 things. A manager or leader has 3 jobs. Number 1, create clarity about where we're going, why it matters, what success looks like, etc. Number 2, increase capability to achieve the outcomes that we're responsible for. And number 3, improve the system to get impediments out of the way, to make it easier for people to sustainably produce good results. That's it. That's the role. Create clarity, increase capability, and improve the system. You want to get into a little more detail, check out our previous episode on the 3 jobs of management model. But practically, the title may change from supervisor to vice president or whatever based on the scope of your responsibility, but it's really still those 3 jobs at whatever scope you're leading.
So here's what we hope you're taking away from this episode. First, let's be a little more aware of the use of the straw man fallacy in our media. I think it's one of the more politically divisive techniques that we see out there, and having our radar up for it a little bit helps us think more deeply about whatever the issue is at hand. And on this particular topic, let's eliminate the straw man manager bad, leader good meme in our own thinking. I've worked with hundreds of fantastic, smart, compassionate managers, and I bet many of you have too. If you're a manager, be great at it. Do those 3 jobs and reflect on doing them in a more creative rather than reactive way. It looks like the job title of manager isn't going anywhere, and that's fine. Let's just do it in a way we can be proud of by having a positive impact for our people, our organization, and the communities we serve. Thanks for tuning in.